Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is August 8th, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. And a big thanks to Roscoe Dino for introducing me to today's guest, Rafe Van Hoy. Rafe, how in the heck are you and where are you calling in from?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually just south of Franklin, which is about 35 miles south of Nashville. And it's in a really beautiful area close to an area called Leaper's Fork. And a lot of music people live out here, but there's also a lot of open farmland that hasn't been developed yet. So it's real pretty and it's been kept nice. So it's a really cool area to be in.
Sounds like there's clean air. So, what is the best thing for a human being?
I don't know. What's like the best thing for a human to receive, or to
Um,
what effect? I mean, the first thing
again, again, you put it into the context that you want.
best thing for a human being, I guess to receive, I guess would be intelligent compassion. Maybe would be
Yeah,
a good thing for a human being.
I like that. What's your favorite form of information? Like how information comes into you? What's your favorite form?
I like psychic information. I'm just kidding. Uh, yeah. Although it's good when you get an intuition that's right. Um,
Hey, yeah, there's a fine line between intuition and psychic, right?
yeah, exactly. Or it's like, now, is this coming from somewhere else, or is this just my brain? Um, I I read a lot on the internet, surfing around. One thing I do like about the internet is when I was younger, I used to think, I wish there was a place that you could look up anything you wanted to ask, you know. And now we have that place. The only problem is you got to watch about the information that you get, because there's a lot of fake information out there. But yeah, I get a lot of my just news and information about the world just surfing around. I've got some. I know there's a lot of places that I don't know about that if I knew about, I'd be checking them out all the time. But like Science Daily, I'm kind of a techie, and my brother's an engineer for Oak Ridge for years, and so we were kind of raised with science and tech and all that stuff, but also uh, into politics and other sorts of things, developments around the
Yeah,
world. Yeah.
it's funny because that pre-internet there was a source. You could call the reference desk at a library and ask them any question, or or just go up to the reference librarian. But it is more accessible now. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, humans are pretty curious individuals, most of them, I guess. They seem to crave input and information and entertainment. I guess these days it's crazy because some of the things people believe are pretty out there. You know.
Yeah, there's a bumper sticker in my neighborhood that says, "Don't believe everything you think."
I love that. I love that.
Sounds like a good song title. But
Yeah, I like to have that painted on the side of my car. That's that, like a billboard. That's great.
do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate or more invented?
Hmm. Um. I guess it's part of it. Our DNA, it's been for millions of years. Collecting information helped us survive. Find food and keep from getting killed and stay warm or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, but some people don't want that much information. Sometimes I think some people need more information. Um, I guess it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Now that it's available, now it's a cultural thing. People stare at their phones. Younger generations, that's all they do is look at their phones all day. So
Yeah.
constant
Do
input.
do thoughts create emotions?
Yes, they do. Um, and emotions probably create thoughts too. But I went through a period of time just in the recent past, not so much now, but a few years back, where I've never had any problems being happy and very level moods, and even when bad things happen, didn't really, always get right again. Might have a bad day or two, but I always knew I'd bounce back. And I went into a pit that was pretty deep that I'd never seen before and never been in before. And I need a little help to get out of it with the depression thing. And those thoughts definitely um, create feelings.
Yeah.
Even physical pain in my brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, fill in the blank, Rafe. I don't know what I think until I,
Think about it.
yeah,
I guess. Because, this guy gave me a song title that I haven't written yet, but I still love it. And it's called The Past Keeps Changing.
yeah,
And now that I've said it, there's probably be 50 songs out there tomorrow called that. But, all the things that I thought at one time, a lot of those things have changed over time with my perspective and more information and looking at it now, looking at me now, and realizing that I have a different view on things. So
yeah, it's forever changing. It's like a Mobius strip, a circle,
that's
like
right. Yeah.
the snake eating its tail. It's just like,
Yeah.
can humans think without language?
That's an interesting question. I'm sure I know they can, but um, I used to wonder years ago, did people that had different languages and different cultures have thoughts that other languages didn't have because they didn't have the words to express them?
Yeah,
And I found out now that is true. Not so much. Most of the common feelings and thoughts have words, and they have words that we can cross collateralize or translate from one to the other. But some cultures do have thoughts that they think because they've assigned words to them, and other cultures maybe don't have those thoughts. Or if they do, they don't hold on to them or they don't communicate them because there aren't words to express them. So
yeah.
they don't.
That evokes two important things. The Australian Aborigines have no word for boredom. Well,
Wow.
does that mean they never get bored? Probably they get bored, but they don't have a word for it. And then the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
Right.
So it's funny because Chomsky said a language is not just words; it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, I think language does break down a lot sometimes when people are they're either confined to the phrases of the day, or they are miscommunicating their own feelings or misunderstood. I think that they're human beings. I don't want to get off on a tangent too much, but to me, human beings are like transmitters and receivers at the same time, and there's an energy of communication that happens between us that we use all the time, but we don't quantify it because science hasn't quantified it yet. But you can walk up behind somebody or pull up next to somebody at a stoplight, and if you look over at them, they'll look right back at you, and they receive that information that you're looking at them or they're getting something from you. You tagged them. It's like hello. So and once you know somebody for a long time, it's like your brain finds the exact frequency, like really frequency, that y'all communicate on, and you stay connected on those stations no matter where you are in the world. And so there's communication, I think, that happens between nonverbal, it happens between human beings a lot. And like when people just say, I just didn't like his vibe or whatever, you
Yeah.
can feel that. Animals feel that. If you're really angry, the hummingbirds don't come around, So there's all that kind of a lot of communication that happens that is nonverbal, but science hasn't yet been able to, write a book on it, exactly how it works and what the frequencies are and all of that.
Well, you touched on a lot of what we're going to go into, but your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I think probably more feeling, because people think in so many different ways. I think it's a combination, of course, I guess, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say feeling, like to what I was just saying. Those, you could call those feelings, I guess, that communication. But once you understand how it works, you might call it thinking. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I
Bridget
think,
Bardot, Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. And I respond to her by going, good luck. you know, how can you shut your brain off completely?
yeah,
Because it is a bodily function, sensual thing, or it's sort of like people who meditate, they go, now think about not thinking, you know.
exactly. So it's impossible to do. It's just a different thought, I guess. Same thing with
Yeah.
music. If you're playing music, people go, don't think. And I've worked with so many artists when it's time to do the vocals, as soon as we start getting analytical about a certain section, or we stop and start from a certain place more than twice, we're not thinking. I mean, we're not. If you're thinking, you're not singing. So you
Yeah.
just need to let your subconscious mind do all that thinking, and just let the emotion, just let it be spontaneous, I guess. In other words,
Yeah.
but your subconscious mind, I think, that computer and those programs are running in the background all the time. So that's thinking in a way,
Yeah.
I guess.
I like your bringing up the word spontaneous, because I worked for George Carlin and we got a flyer in the mail once and it said, I'm trying to get more control over my spontaneity.
I love that.
So, Rafe, here's two questions from Alan Turing in the
Okay.
1950s.
Okay.
Is thinking a function of the soul?
Okay. The function of the soul.
Yeah, is thinking a
Oh,
function of the
oh,
soul?
is thinking a function of the soul? Right.
Yeah,
Um. Hmm. I don't know. I think the soul, if you define that as the energy spirit part of your body, it's using your brain to think. So I don't know if I guess when you die or pass over to the next realm, maybe your thoughts becomes something different or better or more aware or something. You're not limited by what your brain can think of.
yeah.
So I think our brain is a tool we're supposed to use. Uh, I don't know how good we do with it, but I don't. Yeah, thinking of the soul. I think I don't. That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, first of all, I'm happy you're willing to say I don't know. Just because I ask a question doesn't mean you have to answer it, and you don't have to feel obliged to say, you have to know. But it is just going off, and like you said, I'm going off on a tangent. That's what this is all about: anecdotes, stories, tangents, just to prompt conversation and sharing these thoughts. I appreciate it. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Well, they're making machines that can think in a way, as we know, that we can. They can think better than we can in some ways. So I guess you got to define thinking. Before too long, they're going to be creating things better and quicker and cheaper than we can. I mean, what I do for a living, songwriting and music, people who write movies and make movies and stuff. There's artificial intelligence right now that can do all that every bit without us being involved. Whether that's better or not, I don't know. But that part of our thinking they can already do. That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Critical thinking, yeah, I don't know. Thinking with emotion attached, that has some sort of moralistic guardrails on it, maybe. That when you say something, you think something, and it makes you feel like that sounded like that sounded like the truth, but it felt like a lie when I said it. So
It's good. Again, you're getting into a lot of the subjects we're going to get deeper into. So, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I like happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like happiness. Meaning, you don't always know what the meaning of everything is, and it's nice to know that, but things keep changing all the time. Even like I said, the past keeps changing. It's contentment to me is a really good pursuit,
Yes. I like
and
that word.
not just to be, hey, what can I eat to make me happy? What can I do to pacify myself? Even though I think that's important too, but put too deep down to just feel contented about your life and what you're doing. To
Yeah,
me,
you really
that has meaning.
Yeah, you really get it because see, it's really me and you versus the wording on the question. So you bringing in contentment over happiness and meaning is really important to me because I'm not necessarily the best at wording questions, but just the prompts to get you to air some ideas has been great. So you touched on this, and especially with your brother being an engineer and your pursuit in science and technology, you touched on this a little. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Well, part of our consciousness, as you know, is through our five senses. And so
Yeah.
what we see, hear, feel, and all of that. So that's probably the largest part of our consciousness. But to me, there's another part of our consciousness that where like the subconscious, in other words, that never sleeps and gathers information all the time. It's kind of like if you're kind of like your willing slave that will do anything you want it to do. You need to be careful that if you tell it to do something, to remember to tell it to stop because it'll just keep doing it. But your subconscious, sometimes I feel like it gathers so much information that you're not aware of, that you get things that are almost what you would consider psychic, where you know things
Yeah.
right before they're going to happen, or things are going to happen, or while they're happening, but you really don't have any conscious way of knowing that they're happening, but you feel them and it's true. And over decades and decades of those things happening, you realize that maybe your subconscious has gathered enough information that it's ahead of you. It knows what's going on before you get there, And then I also think there's some communication from beyond, because I still feel like I get information that's like a download that even my subconscious was not aware of, and it just comes, and it's like a conversation, like somebody going, now if you listen, I'll give you some information, but you can't talk, and you got to pay attention, and don't try to change it as soon as I tell you.
You know, that's funny because George Lakoff and some of the neuroscientists say we operate 80% on subconscious level. But I would say it feels like right now both of us are like 100% conscious and we're talking. So it's interesting what you brought up about the subconscious. I appreciate that. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of thought, I would think.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right.
I would think so, because we can't quantify the speed of a thought, but we know how fast light is.
Yeah.
186,000 miles per second. But I think thoughts are probably faster. Can be.
So,
Most of mine are way slow.
well, you're doing great. You
My
know,
thoughts are usually way slower than the speed of sound.
well, all I would say is, what's your hurry? You know, why do we have to go so fast? But Audre Lorde, the poet, said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." A colleague of hers, Yvonne Rainer, said, "You can if you expose the tools." What new tool do you suggest?
To dismantle?
Well, again, you put it in the context you want. Just because I open up a question with a cute quote doesn't mean you have to apply it.
I
It's
got you.
the basically the question is, what tool do you gravitate towards? But you could apply the word new, or you could apply to dismantle the master's house.
I got you. I guess the tools I'm in my brain, I'm trying to master or find before my brain declines so much that it can't make any new tools, is just to keep moving forward and understand things a little better.
Yeah.
The humanity is kind of a conundrum because there are brilliant, amazing, talented, wonderful, helpful, giving people on a one-to-one basis. You can meet so many of those people. I know so many people like that. But humanity as a whole is really like somewhere between silly and dangerous.
Yeah.
They don't, and if you look at the curve that technology is going ballistic on right now, the graph of our humanity and ability to survive and live together and even just get along is not really going up. It's just kind of flatlining or about the same as it's always been, you know?
Yeah.
There might even be eras in the past where we were more polite to each other just because it was the common courtesy way to be at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I agree. And what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I try not to worry too much. My main worry, I guess, these days is at my age, I've started kind of a review of things, and I wish I could digitally go back and edit a lot of things I did and said. You know, smooth, take this out, delete. Apple Z that. Put a longer crossfade. Let's smooth those bumps out and edit in a whole lot more gratitude, even though I felt that way at the time, but I didn't say it verbally or act it. And I would go back and put in way, way, way more gratitude to everybody that's helped me and just for being here.
It's good, Ray. That was super. I agree with you. I would love to do that too. In Marshall McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. It's something you talked about already. They're sort of like transmitting and receiving, and they are broadcasting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so that we might be able to learn to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So I ask you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I have no clue. I don't understand why it is that, in the 70s, okay, that was like the end of the summer love hippie sort of mental spiritual awakening from the 60s, right? Early 70s. I really honestly thought humanity was taking a turn for the better. We're going to leave a lot of those old bad habits behind and a lot of those traditions that didn't work. And, I thought we were really going to take a step forward with open minds because everybody around me kind of agreed and feeling the same way. And I'll be damned if about 4 or 5 years went by and half those people that felt that way weren't like that anymore. You know,
Yeah.
I think I will say though that generation, our generation or whatever, did go on to carry forward a lot of those ideas and feelings that did change the future. But why we forget so quickly, I don't know. It's like a new generation has to relearn so much stuff all over again, and they start from their reference point of what they're taught, and if they're not taught by forward thinking people, they're kind of starting from behind, I guess. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yeah, that was good. Joni Mitchell said it well. She said, "We were hippies, then we were yippies, now we're all yuppies." And she is admitting it. And you
Right.
would think we would learn some. Do artists have moral obligation?
Yeah, I think everybody kind of has moral obligations, but again, you got to define what's a moral obligation, because everybody with religion and so forth, everybody has a whole different set of morals. But there have been plenty of times where I felt like if I was working on a song, I thought, well, I could do this or do that. Or if you wanted to make a film or something, I know that this thing or this thought that's trendy right now would probably be popular and would get a lot of acceptance, but it would actually cause some problems and put some thoughts in some people's heads that didn't need to be thinking them. And I think we're just going to skip that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do think that it's good to edit your thoughts sometimes, because just because you can build something and just because you can say it or sing it or write it or go there or make a film about it doesn't mean you necessarily should.
Yeah, it's a
That's
dilemma.
just a personal choice.
It's a dilemma. My friend's a film teacher, and he can't teach Woody Allen. The guy's made 40 films in 40 years. He's a great filmmaker.
Huh?
But because of his the news on his whatever he's done in his life,
Right.
separate the art from the artist. He wants to teach him as a filmmaker,
Right.
but he cannot because he will just get in trouble.
Right. So it's
You
not,
know,
it's
and
not
so that's
politically correct.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it crosses over to what you're saying. Whether you use the word, we use the word chicks or ladies, or you can't. I gave a lecture once and I said, it's so good to see ladies here. And they fucking got my shit. Like, you can't say the word lady anymore.
Really?
Thank you for informing me. But the way she informed me wasn't very polite.
Right. Yeah. Well,
I was trying to be conscious of the fact that more women,
I always
because
thought that was a polite way to, instead of saying girl or,
yeah,
whatever. It's,
well,
yeah, it's so funny. It's like now it's like considered an insult if you said, I love it when you smile. What do you mean you love it when I smile? I don't have to smile for you. It's like, uh, that's really not what I was thinking. But, it's like my wife has studied with some Tibetan High Lamas, one in particular. And one of their teachings that I really like is the intention is everything.
yeah,
And so when you're communicating with people or saying something or doing something, the intention behind it is the context. That's absolutely everything. Everything taken on its face value without the intention, you can kind of turn anything into something bad, I guess.
yeah. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I don't think I'm afraid of either, but I have a tendency to think that some old ideas are really good. And I think a lot of old ideas that are called tradition, I would rather call bad habits.
Yeah,
We need to get rid of. Why do you do this? Well, we just always have, really, and that's a good reason. you know. So there's a lot of people that don't want to evolve. Certain people, they don't want change. They don't want to evolve. So I think I'm not afraid of new ideas. I've never been afraid of new ideas.
this much songwriter too. And one day we were talking and she says, well, you do this. And it's like a bad habit. And I goes, get your own bad habits. So she wrote the song, Get Your Own Bad Habits.
Oh, that's great.
It's a great idea. Just, you take these normal things in life. So
Yeah.
can you
love that.
can you conjure up your earliest memory or one of your earliest memories?
Yes. I actually have two memories that have stuck with me from early childhood as my earliest two memories. And I don't really I've tried to dig up other memories around those periods of time, and there's nothing there that I can remember. But the very earliest memory I have as a human being on planet Earth, I must have been less than a year old because I couldn't walk. I was being laid down on my back into like a baby bed or something in a room by myself. And it was about this time of day here, like late afternoon before dark. And all I remember is not being unhappy. I just was aware that I couldn't move, but I could tilt my head over and look out the window. And I looked out the window and I knew what time of day it was. And I could see the blue sky. It looked about like blue gray, about like today. And about this time of day, and they were putting me down to go to sleep. And I could hear this thing outside that now that I'm in the music business, I know it as a flange or a phasing sound. It was like and there was something outside making that sound. And so later on, and as years went by, I've told my parents about that. What do you think that was? They said, well, that would have been up at the first house where we lived. And she said, around about the time that you were born, they were working on the roads. And so that might have been like a road grader or some kind of road equipment going up and down the road that I was hearing. So that's my earliest memory ever of being alive. And I was helpless, but I wasn't panicky. I was just fine with it,
Yeah.
The second memory was, and I've tried to figure out how old I was here, and I'm thinking maybe 2 something. If I could walk, I couldn't walk much. And I remember where we lived up in that same place. It was sometime in the spring, warm springtime, which in East Tennessee could have been May. I don't know. But I remember being kind of bundled up, sat down in the yard, sitting up with my feet out in front of me, and I couldn't move. I was just sitting there, and the sunlight was coming down and the breeze, light breeze, and there were dandelions and buttercups all around, which tells me what time of year it was, and mowed grass. And I remember thinking, I am so 1,000% content. It's like it became the reference point for my happiness and contentment from then on. So from that point, whenever I wasn't happy, or if I was, or I was happy as, that was like the reference point. And then later on, I got to thinking how important it is for a young child to have reference points that are really positive like that, because some of them don't, and if you don't have that touchstone reference point going forward, it could really create some struggles in your life, I suppose. Yeah.
That really illustrates effects precede causes. It's amazing. Both of them, the flanger sound, and then you get into the music and the happiness and the joy of like the healing power of music. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
I have wished that my memory was better. Yeah, I come up with things when I'm not thinking about it. Sometimes that lets me know everything is there. It's all been recorded. I dream things from the past that I think is a dream, and I realize, no, that's a memory. So all my life, I've wished my memory was better, so I could recall people's names, because I'm horrible with people's names, especially if I get nervous that I'm going to mess up their name. That'll make me mess up. Sometimes, I get, and I know other people have some better memories like that, but some of my memories are crystal clear. But now that I'm older, I've actually met some people that have told me they remember everything, everything, like every day or something, you know. And in my mind, I'm thinking I would hate that because I would just be remembering things I did that I wish I hadn't done or could change, or bad memories. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I would be, that would be a curse to have
Yeah.
a total recall, I think.
Yep.
Absolutely. I'd much rather just kind of have sketchy blobs, like a impressionistic painting of my past. And later on when I die, if they want to play it from front to back for me, when I don't have as much emotion attached, yeah, I'll watch it then. But
Yeah.
I don't care to really relive it right now.
Yeah. And you might even have a fast forward button then too, or like skip the channel. Okay. I don't need that.
Exactly. Yeah. We can zoom right past these next 3 years.
But Rafe, my next question is funny because it's tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model. And what
Yeah.
specifically was that impact? Now, because you covered that so well with Paul Leslie within your immediate family, it's
Right.
evident that your dad was a big influence.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's really articulated in the Paul Leslie interview. And then outside your immediate family, Curly Putman,
Right.
what an amazing influence he had on him. And what a fortunate.
Yeah.
But tell me someone besides them two, because they were expressed well in Paul Leslie's interview.
Yeah.
Someone within your immediate family, other than your dad, who had an impact on you, and what specifically was that impact?
Yeah. I would say my mother, my other parent, because my dad was a real visionary sort of guy that just kind of like, he got it. He was thinking way ahead of his time. My mother was just as intelligent in sort of those ways, but hers was more an intelligence of compassion.
Yeah.
And she came from a family that didn't have a retaliatory bone in their body.
Wow.
And so it was like all about, try to forgive and just try to move on and blah blah blah. To take the higher road and be intelligent in that way.
Yeah.
And so I got those things from her.
Beautiful. That forgiveness is the key. Mark Twain said, forgiveness is the smell that the flower gives out when the foot steps on it.
Oh wow, that's a great one. I love that. Yeah,
But I love that no retaliatory bone in her body.
not one, and
Okay, so
wouldn't even talk bad about people.
yeah,
And people would mistreat her at work in different places because they knew they could shove her around and all this stuff, and I hated that. And as I grew up, I started off with a total 100% forgiveness for everybody thing that I think I got through her and her DNA. And then as I got older, I felt like I had to prove that I could show that I can fight back. And then boy did I ever. And I went too far with it.
Yeah.
And I got to where I realized you're just proving this to yourself. Nobody else is doubting that you can do this.
Yeah.
I proved that I could say anything to anybody, anywhere, at any time. Now I have to really watch that.
Yeah.
I have no filter. It'll just come out. But now I realize every time that even when I felt like I was justified to retaliate or justified to go, you shouldn't have done that or whatever. Every single time I've done that, I regretted it.
Yep.
It had a much bigger effect than I planned on it having, and I wish I hadn't done it. So
yeah, but it's maybe you saw it in your mom, then you had to go experience it yourself, and now you can return to being grounded and understand. It's probably in my DNA. But again, the same question outside your immediate family, besides Curly, someone who had an impact on you.
Yeah.
And just briefly, what was that impact?
There were a lot of people. It's hard to just say one. There were a lot of people that had a lot of impact on me as far as how to use my brain,
Yeah.
and how to use my emotional self, how to mature and grow up and be a more, um, caring and thinking with emotion sort of person. Um, Don Gant, I would have to say, career wise, was the guy that changed my life and everybody else's life, success wise, more than anybody I've ever seen. He was like a powerhouse, and he got me 50 to 60 cuts a year for 3 years in a row. He did that for a dozen people. He
Wow.
tripled. Tree Publishing ultimately got bought out and became Sony Music right after he left. He tripled their income. They were already the biggest publisher in town. He tripled their income in 3 years. And I've never seen anybody do that. It was just unbelievable what he did. And his watching him be fearless and making things happen was really a huge inspiration. I've never been able to do it like he could.
Yeah.
But it was an inspiration in being able to go out and create things for yourself and not be afraid of what happens.
Yeah. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Not really. My dad didn't go to church. My mother went to Methodist church when she was younger, and then we moved out in the country, kind of like where I am now, and out in the rural areas. And we used to go to this little Christian church on the river, and which was an offshoot of, I think, Church of Christ. But I hated it. It was crazy. I couldn't wait to not go to that church. I mean, I hate to say that for people who are in it, but it's just a fact. I'm not a club joiner, and I don't really I don't talk about religion to only my most inner circle, but I think religion, for the most part, sometimes it's helped people, and some people need it. I think overall, throughout history, it's caused way more problems than it's solved, and even to this day,
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not a religious joiner
Do
at
you
all.
do you pray?
I have prayed before. When I pray, I feel like I'm talking to my angels, which I think a lot of would be my relatives who have passed
Nice.
on. I get to feel like they're probably listening if they can be bothered. I got a feeling though that as micro is like macro, like an atom looks like a solar system or a galaxy. Probably when we leave here, everybody thinks, "Oh, we can take it easy now and kick back and we got nothing to do, just float around heaven all day," like the song says. I got a feeling that there's levels on levels on levels and levels, and you just got more things to do in the next. You know what I mean? And people are going, well, enjoy yourself for about a little period of time, float around, see everybody, but then we got shit to do.
Dude, that reminds me of the great joke. The guy gets to heaven, or let's say he gets to hell in St. Pete, standing there, and you can peek in before you go in.
Yeah.
And you peek in, and you go, "You got Wi-Fi Zoom in hell?" And the devil goes, "That's all we got." So it's like you get to heaven, and
Yeah.
it's like, "You've got the Nashville Hall of Fame in heaven," and they
Yeah.
go, "Yeah, that's all we got." But
Exactly.
by the way, congratulations. So, Rafe, do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
You know, again, was the religious thing. A lot of people want to blame Satan for everything, and the devil's going to crawl up and jump on you and make you do shit. Devil made me do that. You know, maybe there is. I've experienced forces in the world that I felt like were evil forces. Very, very, very rarely.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's all man-made, man. It's all humans with bad ideas. That's the way I look at it. And I don't think if there's an evil force in the world, they could be wreaking a lot more havoc than they are. I think humans are really good at messing things up and making life hard enough for themselves. You know what you think?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the hidden question really is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Mm,
Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
right.
JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I'd say a lot of times that's true. But if you consider a bacteria your enemy that's going to wipe your whole family out, you need to acknowledge that bacteria and kill it before it gets everybody. So sometimes you have to acknowledge what's going to kill you or end your existence, you know. But I think there is a lot of time where the you know the a lot of it's bluff, where you just can ignore somebody and it takes their power away, takes the wind out of their sails. So I would agree with both sides of that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. This guy, Nassim Taleb, said games were created to give non heroes the illusion of winning. In
Ah,
real in real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but
right,
we can tell who a hero is.
right.
So then my friend said, well, villains don't think they're bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And Gregory Bateson says, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, oh, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, wow, I did something morally and socially wrong? So it's again a lot of prompts, but the basic question is, does punishment work?
Um, for the most part, I don't think it does. And guilt doesn't work either. Guilt works on a caveman level.
Yeah.
I guess when you're younger, punishment helps kind of show you the guardrails. Like, no, here's the line, can't cross that. That's not a good idea. So, but beyond that, once you're an adult, most people that kill other people or rob something or steal stuff, they never think about what if I get caught.
Yeah.
I think 99%
Yeah.
of them just think I'm not going to get caught,
Yeah.
and they don't worry about the consequence. So the death penalty, is that going to keep somebody from committing horrible, horrific crimes? Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. But James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?
Yeah.
Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play
Hmm.
of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Yeah. I have a theory about that. I have this new song that I've just finished, or maybe it's finished. Maybe I've got more to do to it. It's only the hook and the chorus because the verses are so vast and so varied. I didn't know where to start or to stop. But the chorus is, the hook is, everybody says they want the truth. The truth is, no one really wants the truth. And to me, it's like if you are sitting there watching some boring, poorly made documentary on the invention of whatever, maritime clockmaking or something, that really changed the world at that time. It became a rare something, any pick a subject. I'm making something up, but
Yeah.
any subject that was really an important event. I mean, or Tesla trying to explain somebody that this guy not only came up with the concept for electricity, but all the components that you need to make it work. And
Yeah.
then the laws and the physics of it, how it, he just handed it all to us overnight. And so you could be watching that documentary and somebody could be walking in the door and they'd go, hey, can we turn on Netflix? I want to see Game of Thrones. Oh, there's a new one coming out tonight and I want to see the new episode. It's like, okay. So it's like the truth is not as compelling as a story. People love stories.
Yeah.
They love embellishments, love embellished truth, which is why I don't believe that historical great books that were oral history and have been translated a million times and survived to this day are even accurate. Or what do they mean? There are a lot of things that people love a story, and I've experienced it. The old thing where you tell a story to somebody that goes around the room, it's changed. I've experienced that firsthand.
Oh, yeah.
I've invented things like that when Music Row was like a little campus. Invent a lie just for the fun of it in the morning and tell somebody about so and so doing so and so, and then wait, and by the end of the day, it had been all over town, and the story completely changed. So I think humans are creative, and they can't get creative with the truth. Or if they want to keep the truth, they always get creative with it, and they want to embellish and change, and they want to be they love to be entertained. I guess I don't know. I love boring documentaries that tell about important things and how they really really happened in life. But I think most people don't like those sort of things. They'd rather hear the glorified version.
Yeah. It's funny. Joseph Campbell has that thing about storytelling, how, there's 7 main aspects, and most of Hollywood is taken one aspect, spectacle, and blown it up and sort of avoided the other things like you're talking about, is translating knowledge and research. And, this thing about truth is really important, because another filmmaker, Louis Buñuel, said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it.
Exactly.
Now, most people react like you, that they go, I agree. And one guy said, that's bullshit, because if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it.
Mm-hmm.
But, the cliche goes, the journey's more important than the destination. Why do we have to seek or name a destination if the journey's more important?
That's true. It's kind of like the carrot. I guess we keep chasing, but by the time we get there, something else has already happened, and we're on to something else. I mean, there's so many different opinions of the truth from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And the same event seen by so many different people are all different, especially over time.
Yeah.
Now I'm at the age where I'm experiencing people have different memories of the same event when we were all there.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's some are similar, but some are not at all. So the truth is kind of an opinion in a way.
Yep.
Yes,
And Rafe, you touched on storytelling. Experimental filmmaker Hollis Frampton said, narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
Wow. As if you had a choice.
See, you win. This series is about inventing new questions. You answered a question with a question. That's perfect, dude.
Well, yeah, I get that in inventing, stories because you're waiting to die. Who knows? I don't know. It's going to be. I look at it as, well, now I'm getting on the death thing, but to me, it's like you kind of got two choices. It's either nothing, or it just goes black and you don't know it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or it's something.
Yeah.
And if it's something and you believe in the physics that, energy only transforms, it doesn't end, it mutates into something else, and so do we, then that's the biggest adventure. Death is the biggest adventure of our life, because nobody knows exactly what it is, and nobody's allowed to come back and tell us. probably because we'd screw it up.
You,
I mean,
you name
we've tried to market death as all we can anyway. You know what I mean? With religion
Yeah.
and fear and everything else, and what turn your carbon of your ashes into a diamond for your loved one and all that shit. We've marketed death all we can, but if we knew 1 or 2 molecules more, we would screw it up so bad. You know what I mean? It would be, you know. So I'm sure there's a big firewall there that we're not allowed to
Yeah.
go across and come back from, because we're not allowed to endanger whatever's over there, you know.
No, I love your breakdown on that. It was beautiful because it reminded me of my friend. He said, what happens to you after you die is whatever you believe happens to you.
Mm.
And Paul Krasner even said it better. He says, I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives.
Yeah. I remember seeing one of those. It was like, I didn't believe in reincarnation when I was here before either.
So, Rafe, what I'm interested in is, again, in the Paul Leslie interview, you really got into your attraction to the sound of the guitar, and your grandmother giving you this guitar, and you were all about the guitar playing. So you sort of mastered that and really got into it. And then your dad sort of led you into, no, now put some words,
Yeah.
this idea of blending words and music.
Right.
But were you a reader growing up, and was your dad a reader? I mean, how do you develop a skill in what made you go, I can write lyrics? Was it more hearing other songs or reading books or both? Or what really attracted you into that song lyric writing?
Right. Well, my brother was an avid reader. That's all he did. He read all day, all night. And when they said, turn out the lights, he would put a blanket over his head and get his little pin light flashlight out and keep reading. You couldn't stop it, right? I was not that guy. I was the opposite. I wanted to be outside living life. I didn't want to read about it. I wanted to see the tree. I didn't want to read a book about it, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the problems I found out later, I do love to read more now. I just didn't read. I read a few things, but I just couldn't stay in it because a lot of books, I would see this visual depiction of the characters and the placement in the book in the very beginning. And another chapter or two in, some more descriptions would come that would be contrary to what I was already visualizing. And it would just blow it for me. That's not what I was seeing. I was like, oh no, now I've got to change my whole visual mental concept of what was going on. And so that would kind of kill it for me. But my dad was an avid reader. He read everything. I mean, for him to stay as up to date on all the new developments in science and technology as he did, and everything, gardening, I mean, everything. He read all the time, a lot, and my mother did too. So, but when I was, guitar came easy to me. That's what I loved about it, was I could find things on there very easily, and it was easy to kind of move ahead quickly on it. But when I was 15, and I don't want to retell the story, but my dad told me I should write songs, and I didn't. I went, okay, but I didn't write songs. And I wasn't going to defy him, because he told me when I was 16, I would think he was an idiot. He says, you think I'm cool now? When you get to be 16, you'll think I'm an idiot. You won't want to do anything that I suggest. I said, I won't treat you like that. He goes, you will. I said, I won't. He says, you watch. So one day, do you mind me getting off on a tangent here? One day,
please. That's what it's all about. Love it.
So one day he was a postman. He walked 15 miles a day with mail sack on his shoulder like they used to. Anyway, he was also a sharpshooter. He was one of these guys that did everything great. He just had the knack and the skill to do lots of things really proficiently. And I I'm in the backyard with a 22 rifle shooting cans and stuff, just target shooting. And he goes, "Hey, if you got a, let me see your rifle. So give me a shell." And he puts a bullet in it, and he pulls a quarter out of his pocket, and he throws it up in the air. I can't even see the quarter, and he shoots it, and I hear it land on the roof. So we get the ladder out, and I get up and get it. It's got a hole, perfectly dead center in a quarter. And I'm looking at this thing. I'm 15, right? So I'm looking at this thing going, I'm looking at how clean the hole is. He goes, "What?" I go, "Nothing." He goes, "What? What's the problem?" I go, "Well, I was just thinking that I wasn't sure that the muzzle velocity of a 22 would be, that pressure would be enough to cut a hole like that's like a die punch. That's perfectly clean. I'm just wondering if it had enough power to do that to a quarter without bending it." And he goes, "Oh, really? You think I palmed it and threw it on the roof?" I said, "No, I didn't say that." Because "You got a quarter in your pocket?" I went, "Yes, just give it to me. Give me another bullet." He did it twice.
Oh my God.
And the second time he shot it, it fell in the yard. So it took us a lot longer to find it because it's in the grass, right? We dig around. I find it and I look at it. He shot the half moon out of the quarter twice. Okay. So then from that point forward, the moral of the story is from that point forward, I said, "Whatever you tell me, I'm going to go with that." Right. And so when he told me to write songs, I knew I should, but I didn't say I wasn't going to. I just didn't. Right. And so he wrote lyrics for me, whole verses, of course, lyrics, and just give them to me and go, "Put some music to that." Bang, I'm writing songs that fast. So he conned me. Yeah, he conned me into writing songs. And so and then they moved to Nashville to help me, support me to get the music business. So, I mean, I had all the support and help a human being could possibly hope to have, but I still didn't really know how to write a commercial song that would ever make $1. And then I had to learn that.
Yeah.
Hanging around other songwriters, professional songwriters on music. So it was a very baby step sort of process, but I was led and my hand held all the way through it. It's pretty amazing.
It's a beautiful story. So well articulated. I really visualize. I love this, cutting the grass to find that second quarter. I felt, but Rafe, it's funny. A screenwriting teacher told me a great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're writing a song?
Wow. A lot, actually. A lot of times now, there were times when I'd start writing things just from a musical standpoint. I had no idea where it was going. Now that I've done it for years and professionally, I've kind of figured out the easier, lazy way to do it, which is I get my ideas first. And then out of those ideas, I pick ones that I think can turn into something meaningful, either something that I'm really going to like or something that I could pitch and possibly make $1 with. Okay. So my intention behind what I want that song to turn out is everything. Whether it does or not, I have to have the will and the intention to want to make it. And then so I visualize how great the song could be if it were done perfectly, right, whether I can or not. And then I try to make it as close to that as I can. But that's every bit of that's intention for me anyway.
And Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your listener when you're writing your song?
About half and half, or maybe 40%, probably less now than I used to. I've never really understood everything that the audience gets. So I'm kind of tone deaf when it comes to that. There are some songs I've written that I thought, man, nobody's going to get this. And they might like that better than one that I thought was going to be more obvious. But I don't write I try to write songs now that I think I will like and be proud of,
Yeah.
and not just another thing that's going to be a commercial, like, paint by numbers or whatever. But I do think about the impact of what I'm saying and the idea, and if other people will get it, because I don't want to write something that only I understand. I think if you get something that's exceptional, odds are you're going to have a lot of people that react to it. Hopefully,
What's the function of music?
music.
Yeah.
Well, everybody says it's a soundtrack to your life. I'm not trying to like pat myself on the shoulder or whatever, but I did come up with that. I said that like in the 70s before I remember anybody else said, but we probably a lot of us saying the same thing. I think it glorifies your reality. It kind of distracts from your reality or enhances it. It kind of gives it more of it kind of glorifies it to maybe its importance that it needs to have, because a lot of people look at their lives as just the things that happen, good, bad, in between, but it's just life. But when there's music along with it, it kind of gives it a little bit more emotional impact, even to themselves.
Yeah.
And it should. I think your life should have some emotional impact. I think it's good to make a movie out of your life.
Yes. Beautiful.
I think we're all worth it.
We're all what?
We're all worth it.
We're worth it. Definitely. We're
Inside.
blockbusters.
Yeah.
Every one of us is a blockbuster.
That's right.
My friend says the 3 T's of music are technique, theory, and taste. You've learned how to play the guitar, the structure. How does one acquire taste?
Well, again, that's a broad word and how you define it. But for me, almost all of that you learn from listening to other people that have made music that you liked before. You listen to records that just blow you away, and you go, "Oh my God!" And that's the way it is for me. I mean, I come up with some things out of my brain, but mostly out of your creative source. But most of it, I think, is based on other people's creativity.
Yeah.
In some form or another.
There's an interesting thought McLuhan brought up. He said, song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference.
Could be, yeah.
Any thoughts on that line?
Well, I like that thought. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I mean, the Latin America speech is really fast. A lot of the music is pretty fast too. So I can see how the influence of
what's more fundamental, language or music?
Oh, I don't know. I'm a musician, so I would say music. To me, music is more fundamental in the sense that people who can't speak the same language can enjoy and appreciate the same music.
Yeah.
So that crosses the boundary of language communication.
Well, Thelonious Monk said there are no wrong notes. Any comment?
I think he's right. It was a genius. It's just how it's just a sound that hits your ear. The most amazing orchestral composition is just a sound that hits your ear.
Yeah.
It's really intricate, and it creates an emotion, and it's hard to do, and it's really an accomplishment, and it's absolutely amazing, But
well,
there's
Miles Davis said the talks about the space between the notes.
Yeah.
And even George Clinton says funk is the absence of. How do you integrate this thing about silence and not playing? There's so much you can do with notes, but how do you know when not to play or not to say a lyric?
Yeah, I think that's, again, it's just listen to how other people do it. You
Yeah.
know, if you leaving gaps, creates impact. And if it's solid, a wall of noise from top to bottom, you can't. The groove isn't there. Kind of takes away from it. You have to have silence and gaps. I guess that's why every song now has a breakdown chorus at the end almost.
Yeah.
Somebody did that, Nirvana or somebody did it where they broke the song down on the third chorus and then came back in, and now it's just a thing that everybody does. You almost expect it.
Yeah. Back to Thelonious Monk, he said, silence is the loudest sound in the universe.
I like that. I love that.
Well, about performing, I saw you perform on YouTube, and it was so fun to hear you talk about Roger Miller and the great lines from Roger Miller. I really think your idea of having a book of Roger Millerisms is really important. Someone's got to do it.
Well, his son, Dean Miller, I always thought he should do it.
Yeah, it should be done because the wit is so important. And, my friend Bob Lucas, he writes songs for Alison Krauss. He taught me a great line that sounds like Roger Miller. He says, what key is this song in? He says, the key of the G of key. It's just these little twists, but your career has been so much writing songs, but you have been a performer and you sing in front of people. And Leonard Cohen said the only way you can sell a concert is to put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know.
Yeah.
What role does risk play in your creative process?
Well, in creating music, there's not much risk to it. Going out in front of people and trying not to embarrass yourself is, until you've done it, and you've got a show and you got some songs that you can count on that you can pretty much do every time, or you got enough jokes that you can cover yourself in case you mess up or something. Until you get to that point, it's a little sketchy sometimes. But the kind of performing I do, I wouldn't consider like real performing. It's just songwriter stuff where if you mess up, they're not expecting you to be perfect, and you can tell stories and jokes and stuff. So I call it like sit down comedy. It's really pretty easy.
Yeah. But it is like Viola Spolin. She helped invent improv comedy. You brought up comparing Roger Miller to Robin Williams, and
Right.
she says if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it. What role does struggle play in your creative process?
Well, aside from mine, I've noticed that if you get on stage and they see you struggling too much, they get nervous for you. And you don't want the audience being nervous for you, because then they're going to be feeling sorry for you and hoping you don't fall off the tightrope, and nobody laughs and nobody enjoys it because they're so nervous for you, So I think you have to feel like you're trying, but you're not worried about it too much, But as far as struggle in my own creative process, it's just trying to, push the limits of my brain to try and think of something beyond what I've done or beyond what I think I can. And, just striving to try and come up with something a little better, a little bit further, improve if that's possible. And then
Yes.
I wind up writing a song that sounds just like one I wrote before.
Don't worry, man. All the great artists know that it's like you write the same song over and over and make the same movie your whole life. But
yeah, right.
It is like, Ben Ratliff is a music writer. He says, I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players. as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic person, can be heard at best in a single note. So, like me and you can hear Willie Nelson and go, "That's Willie," a note. We
Yeah.
can hear Miles Davis, and Ben would say, "Well, Miles is fragile and pointed. John Coltrane is slightly undercooked and urgent."
Yeah.
So he basically, if a reducing it down to two words, if a song, a music writer that you really respect was going to reduce your sound, your songwriting ability to two words, which two words would you go, "He got me"? That's what I'm about.
I don't think I've achieved any sort of level of accomplishment where somebody can say, "Oh, that's a Rafe Van Hoy song." They could say, "That's a Bob Dylan song."
Yeah.
I can tell, even if somebody sings it really properly good, who's a great singer, can sing it. I can tell because it's got 35 verses. Um, but there are a lot of people that you can tell their style and what they do. I don't know if I've achieved anything that anybody, or I wouldn't know what words to tell people, you know, to say about anything that I do as long as they like it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's pretty vast. I mean, the amount of songs you've written and the people who've done them is so impressive. And just a couple more questions on music. Um, Frank Zappa said, in order to be in the music business, you have to sell your cock and your balls. Any comment?
Well, if either of those of mine were worth selling, I could have probably advanced my career a lot quicker, a lot faster. But the one of the is Zappa that said that? Did you say?
Yeah.
I can see because that guy, he could do commercial stuff, but he didn't want to do something that was overtly, um, a sellout to be a commercial
Yeah.
record. Although he hung out with the Turtles and a lot of these guys that did that,
Oh, yeah.
in a great way. So there's an art to doing all of it.
Yep. It's beautiful.
The problem with the music business is if you want to make a buck, music is a commodity, and the people that sell it have to put it in, or used to more so. They used to have to put it in bins and places and give it a name and make it sound like a thing, a variety of music, so people want to buy it. I feel like listening to so and so and so. You got to be that one of those that they want to buy. So to be commercial, there are a lot of people that said, "Oh, I'm not going to sell my soul to be commercial. I'm not going to sell out." In my mind, I was thinking, selling out's not such a bad thing, especially if it's like to that 2,000 seater. You want to sell every seat in that place.
Yeah.
So, I know what they mean because there's a lot of hack songwriting things that are not going to be memorable. And God knows I have written those songs. I've written a lot of them. But it wasn't my intention. It's just I was trying to do anything that was going to be commercial and viable so I could make a living doing it. Now, I'd like to combine them both. I like songs that are commercial, but they're also really super cool content, that it's not just songwriting paint by numbers.
You've honed your craft, and Paul Schrader wrote Taxi Driver, said it well. He says the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail. And it's funny, but I love to hear your reaction to this one. They asked Nancy Sinatra, when did the mob enter the music business? And she said,
they invented it. Whoops, I lost you. Are you there? If you can hear me, Jerry, missed what the answer was, but I'm going to guess that
Oh,
they
wait. I'm
invented it.
sorry about that. I think the mob was listening in, and they cut off the. I'm going to say the
All
punchline.
right, the mob was. That's right. They edited the answer.
That is funny.
That
I
is,
really, I mean, this format StreamYard is pretty dependable, so it's hard to say what caused that, but I
yeah, no kidding.
apologize.
So
So
what was the answer though? What was the
well,
answer?
they asked Nancy Sinatra, when did the mob enter the
Right.
music business? And she
Yeah.
said, honey, we invented the music business.
Exactly. That's what I thought she was going to say. Exactly.
And lastly, on music, I would love you to comment on, my friend won 2 Oscars and he starts saying IP. And I goes, what's IP stand for? He goes, intellectual property. And, Oscar Wilde said, everything is in public domain. Well, that so much of songwriting is regurgitating something that's already happened. Like I asked Charlie Hayden once, who quoted old Joe Clark in the middle of an Ornette Coleman song on his bass. I says, what's the name of that song? He goes, that's old Joe Clark. I goes, who wrote it? And he goes, nobody wrote it. now, now you and me know the music world is regurgitating, Igor Stravinsky hears the folk songs by the women in the fields and then works it into an
Irish folk tunes, everything.
Right. But my question is, it boils down to, so and so sues so and so because they ripped so and so off. And then it boils down to what I call lawyer budget.
Yep.
And Elvis Costello recently said, when Olivia Rodrigo practically ripped off one of his songs, he goes, so what? I don't care. Now, maybe he's the rich rock star who's able to do that.
Yeah.
What do you think of this thing of ownership, intellectual property in a business that's, you're deep into?
Yeah. Well, like you say, it keeps changing. When I first got into it, we got paid 2 cents a song, record copy sold, which hadn't changed since they were selling sheet music for Maple Leaf Rag at the turn of the century. Songwriters didn't get a raise, so finally it went up a little bit to 7 and 8 and 9 cents. That it's nice to get paid to be able to do that full time. And now that the streaming thing has happened, those royalty rates and initially they dropped to like 88 10,000ths of a penny per stream. It didn't just drop off a cliff, it just evaporated. That money just went away. There's still some airplay money. So without intellectual property rights, you don't get paid. I don't agree that music should be free. I mean, I'm up for music being free if I could go to the dentist for free. And if
there you go. That's a good
play
comeback.
Yeah, I'll go play for the guy who's going to do my hernia operation. I'll do a gig and he can do me for free. I'll barter. I don't care. But there's a whole generation because of Napster that grew up, adamantly not wanting to pay for music. So I believe in intellectual property rights. At the same time, there's so much stuff borrowed. I mean, there's so many country songs that are exact note for note ripoffs and chords and melodies of other country songs. I'm surprised that every song doesn't have a lawsuit attached to it. There was a song I had out a long time ago called Golden Ring I wrote with Bobby Braddock that wound up being a big hit by George Jones and Tammy Wynette. Well, about maybe 3 or 4 years later, there was a song that Conway Twitty had out called I'd Love to Lay You Down. Lay me down and da-da-da-da, and love words in your ears. It was the #1 record. Big hit. Note for note, Golden Ring from top to bottom.
Wow.
And some friends of ours wrote it, right? And so Bobby comes to me and he goes, what do you think about Conway's thing out. He says, it's our song that we're doing. I said, I know, listen to it. It's exact dead ripoff. He says, and Johnny McRae and so-and-so wrote it. And they're friends of ours. So, I mean, are we supposed to sue them? What do we do? I said, well, my first reaction is our song is not Moon River. It's not some incredible melody that never existed before. Ours is more like a folk tune that could have been an Irish folk song or something at some point. And secondly, I don't think anybody gave them $1 for their song that they meant to give us. It wasn't like they tricked somebody into buying their song instead of ours. Yeah. They bought that record because they wanted to buy Conway's record. So they didn't really cheat us out of any money. They just used the same melody, and I say forget it, So we didn't pursue it.
Yeah,
and then after I said that, Bobby goes, "Well, that's good. I'm glad you feel that way because if they went to court, the musicologist is probably going to point out that Long Black Veil is just like ours." And I didn't know that. I didn't even know I didn't know the song Long Black Veil. I went, damn, we ripped somebody else off.
Right. That's I went up to Frank Zappa once and told him about a similar situation. He goes, I don't want to make lawyers money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I asked for 90 minutes. It's almost time up. Can you go more time or you got to get going?
I don't want to bore you, but yeah, we can keep going.
You're not boring me at all. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Wow. I think you got to have a little bit of both. You always wind up compromise. Yeah. I don't know. Conviction can get you in a lot of trouble, but it also is a driving force. But then compromise is kind of where you always wind up, I guess. I don't know.
You have accomplished a lot. How do you rate these three elements, luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
I would say for myself and for people that I've known that have been successful, I would put ambition and luck and then skill.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who their skill totally, propelled them to the top because they were so good at what they did. They didn't really have to promote themselves. All they had to do is have anybody hear them. Like Joni Mitchell. That's not ambition. That's not luck. She was just brilliant.
Yeah.
All the just brilliance, right? Yeah. But for most people, for me, I know luck has had a lot to do with my success because what I did maybe wasn't any better than what some other people did, but I was in the right place when I did it.
Yeah.
And the ambition has to do with it because you're there after it every day,
Yep.
I'd rather say it was skill, but I think the other two have a higher percentage of success.
Really well put. And two of my film heroes go, ignore yourself. There is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, said, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Mm-hmm. Is art making, music making more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and cultures are dominant?
My ego would like to say it's self-expression, but it really isn't. I don't know. Part of it is, I guess to me, it's like an Easter egg hunt, just trying to look for something that's worth keeping.
Yeah.
I can't say that I'm, from someone who's like a consummate artist, jazz player, somebody who's more free form and they're just every night's going to be a little different or what they come up with. I could say the expression part of it, but the creativity part I think is just, the ambition to try and find those things that stand out. I guess I'm not.
Can art make
I'm not good enough to just say it's a free form artist expression for me.
Yeah.
Chet Baker or one of those guys that's amazing. I could see that, or Joni Mitchell again. She
Yeah.
could play the same song differently every night, and that
Yeah.
expression comes through.
Can art making be egoless?
I would say you have to define what ego is. If you're
Yeah.
talking about the big head ego that we all hate, that's rampant in the music business and all forms of entertainment business, uh, I'd say some art making can be egoless, but you don't know. You don't have to have a presumption that what you're doing is going to be anything anybody else likes,
Yeah.
or even yourself. Who's trying to. I also think that sort of ego. I'm not talking about the ego that propels you to have confidence and pursue your dreams and your art or whatever, but the destructive ego part. To me, is I say the ego is the destroyer of all things good, because as soon as it gets involved, everything else starts going to hell in a handbasket, coming apart at the seams.
Yeah.
I've never met too many people that did their best work while their head was the biggest.
Yeah. Is perception reality?
Well, the big saying in the music business is perception becomes reality. Right?
Wow.
Have you heard that one?
I have not. I love it. What does that mean to you? Perception.
Oh, that just means if you get $1 million in an army, you can have a hit record. If you just promote something enough, you can get some sort of returns or reaction from it. If you look like, it's kind of like fake it till you make it, I guess.
Yeah.
But between perception and reality, um, if you can know what reality is, um, I don't really go for trying to create a perception with anybody. I don't really care what their perception is of something. But what is reality then either? I don't know.
Well, you evoked two of my favorite quotes. One is Andy Warhol said, "It's not who you are; it's who you think you are." And then Lily Tomlin says, "Reality is just a collective hunch."
I would agree with Lily on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
So Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're usually taught to overcome a weakness.
Uh-huh.
Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Hmm. Well, I guess I don't have to think about that. I have a lot of weaknesses. Probably like using like if you take your inability to do something and make it a style. I guess
Yeah.
that would be one way. I mean, Stephen Grappelli, not Stephen Grappelli, but um, my brain's doing this. Sorry, guitar player with two fingers.
A Django.
Right.
Django Reinhardt.
Django Reinhardt had two fingers,
Yeah.
and maybe if he'd had all four of them, he would not have played the same way for sure.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's a good example. Yes. How do you find peace of mind?
ooh, I don't know. Sometimes it's elusive.
Yeah.
Contentment. That's what I call that. Forgiving yourself is probably a good start.
That is good. We're sort of going around in a circle. We started talking about forgiveness.
Yeah.
forgiving others. Now we're forgiving ourselves.
Yeah.
So if you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I would say what my dad probably told me when I was 12 years old, which is if you'll keep your mouth shut more, things will go better. You can think all those things, just don't say everything that you're thinking. Okay. Talk less, listen more, life will go better. And people will
Dude,
think you're a lot smarter.
I do like that because your main tool is your guitar or your keyboard, but also it's your writing utensil. It's your pen or your typewriter. I mean,
Right.
that's the beauty is, yeah, you can say all this stuff, but your art form requires you writing this stuff down.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, every thought you have does not have to be verbalized.
Exactly.
Just because you started a thought doesn't mean you have to finish it. Not everybody wants to hear
That's
what you're thinking.
that's it. So these are 5 Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head in just a couple words. Number 1, who started it all?
Well, it, as in what? The universe or music? I don't know. Who started it all? I don't know. I'm thinking we're talking about creativity, like existence of everything we know. Whoever that entity is was pretty brilliant.
Yeah, it's almost like for you, whoever wrote the first song.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you imagine someone's in a cave and the guy goes, "What did you just do?" I just wrote a song.
Exactly. Didn't know it. Didn't even know it was a song. You just
It
started
didn't know.
singing. So there's a nice echo in the cave,
Nice.
and had a good voice and started singing, and everybody
Yeah.
learned his song, and suddenly he's popular and he's getting all the girls.
Yeah. Okay. The second Alan Watts is, are we going to make it?
I wonder about that. Um, Humanity has survived a lot of things, um, barely. Civilizations have been wiped out, as you know, many, many times over. Right now, what I'm worried about is that there's so many people on the planet that the planet is not going to be as forgiving for our mistakes. Before, you could piss in a smaller pool and get away with it, but there's so many of us now where humans are like, when you think about it, we have to be an invasive species because we've got all the earmarks of something that has no known predators. We trash everything that we come in contact with. We leave a trail of destruction everywhere we go. We wipe out species everywhere we go. We just keep on going, you know. So we had to have come from somewhere else, or some part of us had to come from somewhere else, because we are definitely the cane toad or the kudzu of the human animal world. We are an invasive species, but
Yeah.
um, are we going to make it? I wonder, because um, it's it's going to get pretty sketchy. It's like what we were talking about before. The technological and curve is going straight up ballistic, but our idea, our concept of surviving, as a species and getting along with each other, we're not going forward too far on that. So I saw this thing the other day that talking about people who have been to space. If you've been 100 miles up, where you can see the curvature of the Earth and how thin the air is, the atmosphere. Most people, it changes them where they think, well, from up here there are no borders. There's land, there's water, and there's this tiny thin bit of air atmosphere that's like the skin of an onion, and that's all that's keeping us alive. And so people start they call it there's a word for it, a term for like, not an overview, but something that means that, where they change the way they're thinking. And they say, on Earth, we put monetary economics first. Everything else comes below that. And it needs to be reversed, flip-flop. So survival and protecting this fragile planet we're on should be number one. And then we'll let the economics work themselves out below that, because, the end game is, if we kill ourselves in the process, money is going to help us. But people see that when they go to space.
It's beautiful what you said, because you could just imagine if you can get a different view, that view, you might be able to rethink what we're doing. So here's the third Alan Watts. Okay. Where do we put it?
Where do we put what?
Good. You answered it with a question.
No, but where do you put it? Whatever it is.
Yeah, again, it's the it is either metaphorical or literal.
Right. Well, we're putting it everywhere.
Yeah.
Humans are the only animals that, other than a background, I guess, that are always going to have more shit than they have a place to put it. So.
Okay, the fourth one is, who's cleaning it up?
Well, that's a real good question. I think we all have to start doing that. There's some people with some ideas that are starting to help, but we gotta quit belching it out, and we gotta cut back on the output and start cleaning up more. I think it's possible. We can make a lot of stuff out of plastics that, in construction and highways and stuff, that would last for 50, 60, 100 years to use with recycled plastics. But I keep remembering that scene from The Graduate. Remember when the guy's talking to Dustin Hoffman, he goes, "Just going to tell you one word: plastics." I mean, did they know then what they were saying? I think they did.
Oh yeah, that's Buck Henry writing that and Mike Nichols directing. My brother went into that business too. He loves it when they say that, because he's in the car industry, and the plastic, the thing that holds your rear view mirror, that's what his business is. And,
well, there's nothing wrong with plastics. They're needed. It's really helped us advance our lives, but there's just no thought about what to do with the waste and from the beginning. Yeah. And there's a lot of single-use plastics that should have never been invented in the first place.
Yeah, it's like all inventions. They have services and disservices.
That's right.
And it's how you deal with it. And so the fifth question, Alan Watts, is it serious?
Yes, it is serious, but I think we should always make jokes about it.
Good. I got a few more and we're out of here. This has really been fun. I'm doing a film on archiving, and I'm curious, you've acquired, having a career in the music business, the things you've created, whether they're masters, tapes, and, you talked about these reel-to-reel tapes of your first songs with your dad.
Right.
And you don't even have a reel-to-reel player. No. And, you would like to get them transferred. And I'll give you one tip. Do not destroy your masters because they go to digital. Those magnetic tapes will last longer than the digital. Believe me.
You're probably right. Yeah.
But I've studied this in researching this film on archiving. But I'm just curious your overall thoughts, because so many people our age, whether they're famous and have an important archive or not, like it came up to me when Norman Mailer sold his archives for $1 million. I said, mine's at least worth 100.
Exactly.
But now, now it's pay to play. I found an archive to, store all my interviews, and I think they're important and people can use them as research. But I'm curious, just in general, have you thought of that? Do you just leave that to your wife or your family and friends and say, do whatever you want? Or is there some sort of Nashville archive that you can donate, or, what is the situation?
Yeah, there's the Country Music Hall of Fame Museum have vast archives of stuff they've never even shown anybody. And when people die and stuff, I think they try and collect more and more of that stuff. I'll be honest with you, when I'm out of here, I don't really care what happens to any of it. I spent my time with it, working on it, trying to make it as best as I can. I don't think there's anything in there that's going to change the world in a historical sense from here on out. And there's so much more stuff just like it. I mean, most of my older tapes, my ex-wife never gave me. I got digital bad copies of them, but they've been digitized where I can get copies of them and stuff. But the actual 2-inch tapes, which I paid for and she has no use for, I'll probably never see those again. She may have already thrown them away. So, and it's kind of sad, really, because I've seen instances in the past probably couple of decades where people would actually go dumpster diving and they would find masters from really big famous records.
Oh, yeah.
And the record companies and the studios just threw them in the dumpster.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were digitized. We don't need this.
No, it's endless. It's endless what happens. And then they have those sort of fake fires like at Universal. Or no, I shouldn't say that. They have fires where they burn all the masters. But, Rafe, I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I know you have some studies of Tibetan and Eastern philosophy, and Ram Dass says, be here now, live in the present.
All right.
And you touched on this, which is Wyndham Lewis said, the role of the artist is to live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. And that sounds like a lot of gobbledygook, but it's basically, why would we want to preserve the past when it's so important to live in the present?
Right.
Is that somewhat your philosophy, or that your archives is important, that when it boils down to it, you've written a lot of important songs that have entertained and touched people. In the process of writing them has some history.
Well, I feel fortunate that I've written songs that other people have liked enough to want to listen to and buy and become something that they appreciate. So I don't want to be ungrateful for that. I guess I just feel like there's nothing I've done that's really like that I would put on the same level as like a, Paul Simon archive or something that's like, something I look up to that to me, somebody might like to keep some remnants of these and whoever wants them after I'm gone can have them. But I'm kind of done with them, I've done what I've done. There's a lot of songs I've got that the world has never heard. And what I'm trying to do now is get those things at least in one place online or some archive.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, if somebody was bored enough and if they wanted to, they could go through and listen to different things I've done, because I have a very wide variety of styles and different things I've done that are interesting to me. And I would like for people to see, wow, he did that. That's really him. It's like from pop 80s and 90s stuff to R&B things to Memphis C sort of Al Greeny things and all sorts of different things that don't even have a category, that it'd be nice to have all that live in one place in case somebody ever want to listen to it. But other than that, I don't think I have any museum pieces.
In how many, basically you've written songs for about 60 years, would you say 6 decades?
Started in 1970, 69, 70. So it's at 89, coming up, 50 some years, I guess. Is that right?
54 years. So how many songs in 54 years have you written approximately? Would you guess?
I have no idea. I used to back in the day, when I started having publishing deals. I averaged about 35 to 40 a year. I didn't write as many as a lot of people. And after those days, my volume has gone way down because I'd rather finish songs that I think have some merit to them than to just crank out a bunch of pretty good songs. The world doesn't need another pretty good song, you know.
Hey, that's the name of a good song right there.
Yeah, you don't need another well written, finely crafted, pretty good song. You know. So I try to only finish things that I think have some legs and are gonna like listen to some years back. So my production output is way down from what it used to be. So I don't know. I'd have to. I really don't. I don't know how I'd venture a guess on that. I have more ideas, of course, way more ideas than I'll ever finish before I die. When I got divorced from my first wife, she was a really good writer, and she was very good at keeping notebooks of ideas and number them and whose name initials were beside them. Was it me? Was it her? Was it a third person? Whatever. And when we split up, she handed me a notebook with 1,000 ideas in it that hadn't been written yet. And I know that, a lot of them were not going to be worth writing songs about, but there were entries in that book.
Yeah.
And I set that aside and never looked at it again because I'd already started a new collection of ideas. And I've got a phone full of them now and tapes full of them that I put down. I've never bothered to go back and listen to. So I could spend from now to the rest of my life just reviewing all the tapes and things that I've written down to see what's worth writing and finishing songs if I never wrote another idea down. So that's what I'm most prolific at, is getting the ideas, not so much finishing and demoing. That takes a lot longer.
Yeah, that's another great Frank Zappa line is don't stop and keep going. Okay, a couple more and we're out of here. Thornton Wilder.
Quotes.
Thornton Wilder said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for almost 2 hours. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. Rafe, what is it really all about for you?
Probably just trying to trying to write, as far as songwriting goes, trying to create something that, message-wise, at least from the lyrical side, is something that people can relate to, that maybe hasn't been said quite like that, or a story that hasn't been told quite like that has some sort of uniqueness to it, even if it's the same story but with a different slant on it.
Yeah.
Something that's not just a hooky sounding hook, but something that has some uniqueness to it that'll touch somebody. When you hear, have you heard the Body Rate song? What was it? What's it called? In a minute, or in a moment, or what's the name of it? What's I forgot the title of it.
I forgot, but who?
About the guy who tracked her down because he had the heart from her deceased son or whatever.
Yeah.
Songs like that really inspire me to come up with something that's different, that's memorable and musically memorable and message memorable. I remember I was writing with Mike Reed one day, many, many, many years ago. It was the first time we were going to sit down and try and write. and he said, "Hey, I just finished the song with Alan Shamblin. You want to hear it? Just a couple days ago. I'm really proud of it." I said, "Yeah, play it. I'll just play it for you before we get started." He played me "I Can't Make You Love Me." I don't know if you're familiar with that song, but I think that's one of the best songs ever written. And and when after he played it, I was like just blown away. It was like, okay, now what are we supposed to do today? That's going to touch that. But that kind of song. Every time I hear it, I go, "Wow,
Yeah.
I love that. The musicality of it, the message, the melody, everything, entirety. It's like that's just got all the good stuff, you know."
Yeah.
And Bonnie Raitt's new song, that's one of those. And not every song has to be heavy like that. It
Yeah.
can just be groovy and fun song. But those two, just something that's unique and something that I think I'll like after hearing it 100 times while I'm demoing it.
Yeah. It's really well put, dude. You're really a wordsmith, and I appreciate your time here. Two more, we're out of here. So, what's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Mm. Ooh. I see a lot of cultural shifts that I'm kind of worried about. But all those things always wind up mutating into something good. I don't know what the new cultural shift is, unless it's just um, people, how people are changing with the access to more information. I mean, you would think that alone would put the world in a better place.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
What
that's it.
what gives you the most optimism?
Um, well, just when you give up on music and give up on people, then you hear somebody or you hear something or you see somebody do something that blows you away. So humans are really resourceful and pretty inspiring with some stuff that they can come up even in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
They'll pull out one on you that you'll never expect. It's really amazing. So I'm just hoping that we can move past this disinformation propaganda era that we've fallen into here, where we've got propaganda networks that are telling people what to think and they're believing it.
Yeah.
That it still blows my mind that people believe most of all
Yeah.
that stuff. And it's so blatantly horseshit, you know, and it's dangerous. And so I'm hoping that we can move past this culture of disinformation and propaganda, and maybe the dissatisfaction with the younger generations will make that happen.
Yeah, I think you brought it up earlier, critical thinking skills. We
Yeah,
hope that in the midst of drowning in this sensory overload of disinformation that we could develop our critical thinking skills even better, you
yeah,
know.
hopefully.
And Rafe, it's really been an honor and a pleasure, because the first question I ask is, what is the best thing for a human being? And when they asked Wilhelm Reich that, he said the best thing for a human being is another human being.
Oh, that's a good
And,
answer.
and you talked about compassion, intelligent compassion.
Passion,
And
yeah.
then the last question is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people.
Mm.
So, it's truly been a pleasure and an honor spending this time with another person, especially you. Thank
Thank,
you so thank you so much for your time and energy, and thank you so much for all your music and songs.
well, thank you, Jerry. It's been an honor to talk with you and be interviewed by you, and and get to visit with you and get to know you better too.
Yeah,
It's really been you're really a great mind, and you've got a great repertoire of knowledge and quotes from people too that really interesting.
well, thank you so much. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
That'd be great. I love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray.
Hey, thanks, Jerry.